And welcome back once again. The last episode, we talked about old clubfoot Sidney Gottlieb. He'd been appointed by Alan Dulles as chief of the chemical division of the technical services staff, the TSS. And today, we're going to get into some of the 149 sub-projects of MK Ultra. Might even get Matt to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you.
Power of Christ.
This is
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
howdy. How's it going? How's everybody doing?
Lady.
Welcome back once again to our third part in a 15-part series on MK Ultra. Not really. No, this is going to be it. I'm going to pull a tie and be like, I'm done.
I'm done.
Gotta say fuck it first.
All right.
Mhm.
Well, I'll let you. Well, when I say that, yeah, that's when you'll know I'm done. It's been fucking boring for you people, I'm sure, but I wanted to kind of get to this point. This is where the good shit happens, and there's by the good shit I mean the horrible shit.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I'm saying. So we're gonna dive right in unless you guys want to talk about some shit first. Because
I took one today.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, BMs are important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll
It's healthy.
we can talk about that too. There's some shit on MK Ultra. There's some BMs involved in that too. Right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay, like I said,
Oh, yeah.
in the last episode, we had old clubfoot there, Sidney Gottlieb, appointed by Alan Dulles as chief of the chemical division of the TSS. He had no budget, really. I think he had he had an actual budget of like 13% of the entire CIA budget, which is an enormous fucking amount of money when you think about it. So, yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? I might take you all on a vacation if I had that kind of money. Take a little
I'd like
trip
that kind of a budget.
and not on LSD.
Fantastic voyage.
Yeah, Gottlieb, he just
I'd like
dives right in, man. He was, I think he was noted as saying like, "Hey, I didn't come here to not figure out and fuck around. I came here to fuck around and find out." Maybe he didn't say that.
There you go.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Can't back that up.
Quote.
Yeah.
Absolute quote.
So hypnosis was really high on the MK Ultra to-do list because the CIA thought, if we can figure this out, then we can turn unwilling people into assassins. They wouldn't remember it, and wouldn't have any
It's quite the
idea
plan.
of what they'd done or who they'd done it to. And they're
It
like,
takes the term plausible deniability to a whole new level.
whole different fucking level. Yeah.
Certainly does.
Yeah. So that being said, that was their theory. I mean, that's what Gottlieb started working on. The person who had the most knowledge of hypnosis at the CIA was named George Esterbrooks. He claimed he had a theory that could possibly split a person's personality with two separate consciousnesses. That's a fucking hard word to say.
Ooh, that's a rough one.
Yeah. In the same person, with them being unaware of the separate consciousnesses. I got to
Yep.
it. Okay.
You got it.
Anyway, by doing this, he stated that he could create messengers that would not only be able to not remember consciously where their mission was, who they had spoken to, or what they had done.
Operation Sybil.
Operation Todd.
Ooh.
No, Operation What Todd Said. Yeah. Yeah. So in 1951, the CIA funded a sensory deprivation study under contract X-38 using Donald Hebb in Montreal, Canada, This study was performed on students that they'd have them lay in this lightless, like sensory deprivation type cubicle 24 hours a day with all their senses muted.
For 24 hours?
A day, yeah.
Yeah,
Had
24
studies-
hours is a day.
Yeah.
That is the whole one.
Goddamn
Yeah.
day, boy.
Damn.
So these studies showed that after 4 hours, students were unable to follow any sort of train of thought. And after 24 hours, it caused a serious disturbance.
In the force.
And at 48 hours, 2 fucking days,
Insanity.
students began to have hallucinations similar to that of mescaline with no drugs.
Wow.
Just, yeah. Because the CIA saw potential in these types of experiments, they funded hundreds of very similar projects to this.
How many people went through it that we don't know about? I mean, seriously.
Dude, we're not even going to get close to hitting all the shit that I wanted to hit because there's just not enough time. Like I said, unless you want to do a 13 fucking, yeah. We've almost spent a fucking month on this already. So let's do
Right.
it. Yeah.
And it's going to
It's
keep
time
going.
to shit or get off the pot. So around this time, the CIA also recruited a magician by the name of John Mulholland. Mulholland had been a protege of Harry Houdini. And after Houdini's death, he became one of the world's most famous magicians of his time. He authored several books about stage magic, owned a personal library containing over 6,000 books on magic that later was purchased by David Copperfield. So this guy was full of Wingardium Leviosa, I guess. I don't know. So when Sidney Gottlieb asked Mulholland to help on the MK Ultra project, he accepted. Just like Sidney had been denied entry to fight in World War II, Mulholland had wanted to fight during World War I, but he'd had rheumatic fever, so he was unable to fight. So he had this really willingness to, help his country out. So he was like, "Sure, I'll help you fucking kill people. That sounds like fun." Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta have
Yeah.
some necessary evil in it.
Yeah.
What was that, Todd?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, playing with toys.
I pushed
So-
the buttons.
I pushed the
That
button.
certainly sounds like I was.
Mulholland's first job at the CIA was to train agents on how to deliver poisons using misdirection and sleight of hand techniques. And because of the success of these training missions, Gottlieb then had Mulholland write a training manual for CIA officers. This manual happens to be the only document, like fully complete document, that has survived in its entirety from any MK Ultra project at all.
Wow.
The project
Sleight of hand.
this-
Ignore this.
This manual is called Some Operation Applications on the Art of Deception. And it uses a lot of euphemisms, from spectators being targets to performers being agents and materials being toxins and a trick for poisoning. It was split into 5
A
sections.
dirty one.
The basis of successful performance, tricks with pills, tricks to obtain small objects, and tricks with liquids, and tricks with loose solids, like diarrhea. I may have added that.
That's where I went to. That's exactly where my brain went.
Yeah.
When you said tricks with personal, I was picturing David Blaine stealing somebody's watch and it's inside a jewelry store, even though it's closed. It's like, oh, great trick. Now I'm going to get my watch back.
Right.
Asshole.
So through this manual, it taught agency personnel how to do things like hide poisons in everyday objects like pens or in the end of a ring cap, or how to flick pills into somebody's drink without them noticing while they're lighting their cigarette at the same time.
Ask some frat boys.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was kind of weird, wild, interesting,
Crazy.
different. So some
Little
magician taught some
Yellow.
guys to.
New.
What about your penis?
Go Wayne's World.
So In 1952, Gottlieb set up some experiments to see if people who have hepatitis are more affected by LSD. He had agents in Paris slip LSD to patients that were admitted to an American hospital there. One patient, Stanley Glickman, was an American artist, and they put him in the hospital. Actually, Gottlieb put him in the hospital. He was having drinks with a friend at a bar, where they were soon joined by some other Americans. Before he left, one of these men insisted on buying him another drink after they'd had an argument about politics. These men were all dressed in suits, by the way. He's an artist, so obviously probably didn't have the same political views. So this guy goes up to the bar, gets the drink instead of ordering it from a waitress, brings it back, gives it to him. Glickman takes a couple of sips from this drink, and he begins to hallucinate almost immediately. He
got Dahmered.
He quickly thinks he's been poisoned, and he ended up wandering for hours outside Paris in the streets until he's picked up by an ambulance, taken back to that American hospital, and then they proceed to sedate him, conduct electroshock therapy on him, and dose him continually with LSD. He never recovers. His fiancée at the time, he tells her to leave him. He never paints again, never reads books again, and basically lives alone in an apartment with his dogs because he never really recovers enough to be social around people again. But he did remember that this person that got him this drink had a stutter and a limp.
Ooh.
I think it was Sydney. Yeah.
I just can't paint anymore. The colors on the canvas never match what was going through my head.
Can't get it in hot pink enough. I don't know. It's just not neon.
I can't make it move.
All right. So very shortly
That's
after
me,
this,
that poor bastard.
right? Yeah. One of the many.
Yeah.
Shortly after this, in early 1953, Alan Dulles is appointed as the head of the CIA, which basically means Gottlieb has free reign to do whatever the fuck he wants and doesn't have to worry about it because he's also already been told, hey, do whatever the fuck you need to do.
That seems to be kind of a thing that's been happening here.
So Sydney starts bringing in scientists from outside of the CIA and the U.S. military to help conduct in all these experiments. One of these scientists was named Paul Hulk from the New York Psychiatric Institute. Sydney gets Hulk to inject a patient with mescaline. Hulk was a psychiatrist, and he chose one of his patients named Paul Blower. Blower was... Stop it.
Okay.
Stay on
I was
target.
thinking when you said Hulk, I was thinking gamma rays, but then I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay on this.
All right. So Blower had recently gone through a divorce. I think he was a retired tennis player. So that's why he'd gone in for all these treatments. I'm going to ignore you right now, Matt. And he had severe depression, so he went in to see Hulk because of this. Hulk said, take mescaline. So over the course of the next several weeks, Blower is injected 6 times, insisting every time after the first time that he does not want any more of these drugs because he's having nightmares and hallucinations from the injections. But Hulk says, I insist you must continue treatment or else we have to start sessions over again. During his last session...
Dr. Banner.
Dr. Banner to the floor, please. So during his last session, Blower receives an injection that is 14 times higher than any he has received before.
That's a lot, man. That is a
starts having
lot.
seizures immediately, suffers a heart attack, and was dead basically 6 minutes after these injections were given to him.
Holy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread that. He was dead 6 Dukes of Hazzards after he received the injections.
There you go. All right, now it
So you
makes
don't
sense.
know,
Now I
that's
get where
about
you're
3
going.
hours. I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Now I get it.
Now, the actual death toll from all these crazy little experiments they were putting on will never be known because most of the documentation is destroyed. But these 2 for sure were the 2 known American deaths as a direct result from all these MK Ultra experimentes.
One.
Page 1.
Page
Ah,
That's actually page 2. It's double sided. I have
14 pages double sided.
All right, another of
What?
these guys that helped conduct these experiments. His name was Harris Isbell. He was the director of research at an addiction research center in Kentucky. He used prisoner inmates and conducted various experiments using LSD, mescaline, and other cocktails to see if he could make prisoners more susceptible to hypnosis, produce delusions, etc. Fuck shit up, basically. He wrote a bunch of articles that were published based on the research he was conducting, but would always refer to the prisoners as volunteers in these papers. They weren't really fucking volunteers.
Well, if you were a prisoner, they could have actually said, "Hey, you want to do this, and you'll get out of the hard labor, and we'll give you better
he did something
food."
very similar to that. A lot of these prisoners were bribed, and in exchange for doing these research experiments, they were paid in heroin. A lot of these. This is a drug rehabilitation center, by the way, and he's paying these
They're using
motherfuckers
heroin.
that are there because they're basically drug addicts with heroin.
Yeah. It's a methadone clinic, and you're paying them in heroin.
Whitey.
Yeah. Well, who's going to say no?
Yeah.
Monsters.
He was trying to find out how much LSD a person could take before their mind would completely break. And as the experiments progressed, he found a group of inmates that agreed to take LSD every day. And after several months of this, he quadrupled their doses and kept them on that regimen for 77 days. Now, these particular experiments were never discussed publicly. They were only discussed between Gottlieb and Isbell. Remember when I said these are your U.S. tax dollars at work? They were. You want me to go on? Here's another one. By the way, I'm not going to hit them all. I just found some that I thought were, kind of interesting.
And even if you found all the ones that you could find, there are still more.
Oh yeah. Okay, another one of these wonderful human beings. His name was Carl Pfeiffer. He was chairman of pharmacology at Emory University, and he ran several sub-projects studying ways to induce psychotic states in schizophrenic in normal people. Both. He wanted to find out how much a schizophrenic could take and how much a normal person could take before they just fucking snapped.
That doesn't seem scientific at all. It seems like that would be like just common knowledge of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be less for a schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Definitely going to be less before you break them.
The reason I want to bring this one up is because one of the prisoners involved in his studies at the Atlanta Federal Prison was named James Whitey Bulger.
Ooh,
you know who that was?
Bastard.
He ended up murdering like 13 people after this, but he claimed
he's a fucking rat.
Fucking insane because same deal there. They would be put on a regimen of hallucinogens for. I think that particular study was like 5 months every day.
I wonder if Capone's syphilis was injected to him.
Injected with a poison.
Did he get it natural, or was it injected to him just to see?
Yeah, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynn, do you think he spit on it first?
I'm pretty sure he got it.
Ding.
All right.
The bucket was clear across the room. She's just a good shot.
I do.
I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
Fuck, we're already 20 minutes into this. Another scientist in the MK Ultra research was farmed out. Let's see, in Canada. Okay. His name was Dr. Ewing Cameron. Now, Cameron was at one point the head of the American and the Canadian Psychiatric Associations. He worked primarily in Canada, and the CIA approached him through a fake research foundation called the Society for the Education in Human Ecology. So from 1957 to 1960, the CIA funneled $60,000 to Cameron through this fake foundation to conduct mind control research. And that is like the equivalent of about $500,000 today. He
No
thought
biggie.
he could eliminate types of thought and behavior from human beings. Yeah.
And I bet they're the good ones too, like
Kinda sounds
conscience
like
or
he wanted to be a Nazi.
a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's 9 with the puppies. Okay, so one of his patients was named Esther Shire. She was a pregnant woman who went to the hospital seeking help for anxiety due to a previous miscarriage. So when she was admitted, she spent 30 days in what Cameron described as a sleep room, where she was put into a drug-induced coma and awoken 3 times daily for meals and bathroom breaks only. She also went on a treatment Cameron developed called depatterning, in which he used drugs and electroshock therapy to break down patients to a childlike state, and also psychic driving, where he would replay recorded loops for up to 20 hours daily to the patient. These loops would include things such as "Mother hates me."
It's like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, shit like that.
Walk, don't run, salute when you see me.
There you go.
Walk, don't run, salute when you
So these
see me.
things would be, we played through headphones, helmets, pillows, and wall-mounted speakers 20 to 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Scary. How would you like to hear this?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
24 hours a day.
No one wants that.
Right. So Cameron thought that through these treatments, he could reprogram patients from a clean slate. When Esther Shire left after her 30-day treatment, she was completely depatterned, in Cameron's words. She had completely forgotten her husband. This pregnant woman had lost 13 pounds, had no control of her fucking bowels, could not speak.
She was pregnant?
Yeah, she was pregnant when this was going on. She went in because she had so much anxiety from a previous miscarriage, and she was pregnant again.
Oh.
She was afraid she was going to lose another one and was wanting some help for it. Well, you make a pregnant woman lose 13 pounds. That's a lot of help. Yeah, well done. Cocksuckers.
No, this isn't over yet.
Oh, I'm sure it's not.
He continued to see her 3 days a week until 1 month before her baby was due, and continued this depatterning. And when she finally gave birth, she had to have other people explain how to take care of the kid to her, because they had to write it out. Like, okay, if the baby's crying, check its diaper. Or,
I'm surprised the baby
it
made
might
it.
be hungry. Be sure to burp the baby. You know what I mean? How fucked up is that? Now, she eventually recovered, but it took her a long time to get there.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I believe she, I don't know if she sued the Canadian government or if maybe she got a settlement out of it. We'll get there in a sec. I can't remember. There's been too much shit I've had to fucking read for this. I'm talking like 5 books and like 30 articles and like 8 or 9 different documentaries.
Many things.
Many things. So Cameron did this and similar experiments to hundreds of other people. And in the 80s, 9 of these former patients sued him and the CIA in 1988. And they settled out of court under the assumption that the CIA would hold no accountability. Then, in 1994, the Canadian government offered similar compensation of $100,000 to 74 other patients that had undergone Cameron's depatterning, with the same deal: no accountability to the Canadian government. Because you see, when the CIA stopped funding Cameron, then the Canadian government started funding Cameron.
I was going to say, yeah, we'll pay you that, but it won't be in actual dollars.
You know, Canadian dollars is a
Wilsonites.
little different.
That's a lot
Syrup.
of loonies.
That's a lot.
Loonies and Toonies.
Now,
Oh, Loonies and Toonies going on.
now Gottlieb was no exception to his own rules. He was experimenting with LSD himself the entire time,
Oh, yeah.
and with other agents in the CIA who were willing to be dosed. Now, eventually, CIA agents would be dosed without their permission. By 1954, surprise dosings around the CIA offices were so common that the CIA's Office of Security sent out a memo to all agents stating that certain agents were testing LSD on other CIA agents. And due to that fact, they recommended that no one drink from the punch bowl at the company Christmas party that year. I thought that was kind of funny.
That is pretty funny.
Don't drink the water, man.
It's not whiskey anymore.
No.
I mean, they're getting carried away over there.
A little bit.
Too whiskey.
Much too whiskey.
Much too whiskey.
There were a few people involved in MK Ultra that once they got a good, look at what was going on, really, they couldn't stomach it. One of these people was Frank Olson. He was a bioweapons researcher at Camp Dietrich that had been hired by his former professor, Ira Baldwin. We mentioned him in the first episode. He was the guy that founded it. So he had helped to develop various toxins, poisons, ways to kill people and torture people. But he'd never conducted it on human subjects before. He would go into the office and he'd leave on Friday, come back on Monday, and he'd see like 100 dead monkeys. He didn't really like that. This job really wasn't for him, but he just kind of was like, fuck it. I'm good at this. Somebody's got to do it. I guess I'm going to do this. So after he was brought on at the CIA, one of his first assignments abroad had been to take notes at all these black sites where prisoners were drugged, hallucinations were given out, or hallucinogenic drugs were given out, and then they were tortured. And Olson doesn't really care for watching these people fucking go nuts and be killed. So he starts to consider leaving the CIA. So in May of 1953, he sees a nerve gas test go really badly. He watches while this 20-year-old soldier dies right in front of him. And he helped develop this nerve gas, by the way. So after he reported his findings to a superior, the superior wrote a follow-up report that stated that Olson was deeply disturbed by what he had seen and displayed signs that he did not want to keep secret what he had witnessed.
Oh, boy.
This report was forwarded to the CIA head office.
Probably shouldn't let anybody know that information until you were already out of there.
Yeah. So
I'm picturing this going badly.
Anything about that is because he had told a couple friends. He had a couple really close friends that he kind of kept in the loop. Like, look, this is some fucked up shit we're doing. I got to talk to somebody about it.
I think you would have to.
Yeah. So, he decided, fuck, I made a huge mistake. Probably need to get the fuck out of the CIA. But before he can, he ends up going on this work retreat with some other CIA higher-ups, including Sidney Gottlieb and his assistant. And
that's good news.
On the first evening of this trip, after dinner, they're all dosed with LSD without their consent. He reacts very badly. And after 3 days, he still he's not recovered yet. He's still fucking completely out of it. So he gets taken to New York to talk to a CIA psychiatrist. And during his stay, he apparently jumps from the window of his 10-story hotel room to his death. That's how the CIA official report states it anyway.
Did he?
Yeah, they say it's suicide. Oh, yeah.
Which,
after MK Ultra came
but if you
into
look at this,
light of day,
if you look at this
and some
hotel,
documents
it
were
was
made available to
that you
the
think
public,
it's
Olson's family had his body exhumed, for an autopsy where they found specific cranial injuries that would point to the fact that he was probably unconscious when he fell. And more than likely, he was probably pushed out the window, forced out the window. Yeah.
This is double proof, soundproof glass.
Now,
Like an Ace Ventura.
I can't say that's fact. Nobody knows exactly what happens except for whoever was fucking there. But I think to say it's probably pretty safe to say that it's not out of the realm of possibility that the CIA had him fucking murdered.
I hope they at least blocked off the street before they did it. What if he'd landed on somebody?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think it was. I can't remember which fucking president it was, but he actually made it an apology to Olsen's family, like a public apology, after everything.
Wow.
Came to, like, after MK Ultra had been, discovered. He was forced to make a public apology, and I think that's the only time
I'm about to say something.
it's ever happened from the president of the United States. Like, oh, sorry, we fucked up.
Well, you found out about it. I mean,
Yeah. So there were several investigations into this incident. One was headed by Lawrence Houston, who was one of the principal drafters of the National Security Act, which created CIA. And his report summary stated that, quote, the death of Dr. Olsen is the result of circumstances arising out of an experiment undertaken in the course of his official duties for the U.S. government, and that there is, therefore, a direct causal connection between the accident and his death. I'm not happy with what seems to me to be a very casual attitude on the part of TSS representatives to the way this experiment was conducted, and to the remarks that this is just one of those risks running with scientific experimentation. A death occurred that may have been prevented, and the agency as a whole, especially the director, were caught completely by surprise in a most embarrassing manner. In other words, he's like, you fucking dipshits, what the fuck are you doing? You're making us look like fucking assholes.
and embarrassing's, I guess, a way to put it. Shameful, probably a little better. Yeah. Disturbing, disgusting, awful.
For sure.
Incomprehensible.
Yeah.
There are many adjectives I suppose you could use.
Oh, yes, for sure. Now, there are further investigations. So Dulles writes a memo to Gottlieb telling him that he used poor judgment, and that's as far as it goes. That's it. He's like, don't do that again.
It was poor judgment.
Don't
I'm sorry
again.
about my poor.
That's basically it.
Poor judgment was, I used the lob wedge when I should have grabbed my pitching wedge because I was a little bit farther out than I thought. That's poor judgment. This is ridiculous.
Oh, shit. So by the mid-50s,
Jeez.
Gottlieb gets Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company. And I believe they're in Indiana. I want to say Indianapolis, possibly. He gets them to manufacture LSD-25 exclusively for the CIA for around $400,000. And I'm talking like millions of doses. Enough to dose anyone, anywhere, anytime. Yeah. So that's what they start doing. But not abroad. They do it in the fucking U.S. And so, the CIA is not a domestic agency, right? They're not supposed to conduct any sort of business on American soil. So none of this next part is legal. Not that technically any of the other shit
Most
I mentioned
of this
is legal either, but this shit.
Legal schmiegel. Give us the money and leave us alone. We'll apologize if we get caught 20 years after the fact.
All right. Let's get into the part that goes.
Oh, yeah.
Enter George White. George White is a narcotics bureau agent, basically in the DA before it was called the DEA. He was famously known throughout his agency as a drug addict and a heavy drinker. He was known to drink a whole bottle of gin after he ate dinner every night. Yeah.
Get it, buddy.
He also was a sex addict too.
Well, if you're a fan of Tang, Ray, you're probably a fan of Tang too.
Jesus.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
So White would typically bust someone, then steal some of whatever the fuck they had for himself. He had previously given concentrated weed to mobsters during the mid-40s during OSS's original truth serum research programs, just to see if they would talk. And Gottlieb thought he was a perfect fit for what he had planned for his next little misadventure. I thought it was funny that this guy's like, "Here, man, smoke this. Now tell me how you getting all these drugs in here." You know? And then they would talk because they're fucking high as a kite. Anyway.
Concentrated weed. You mean like what you can go to the dispensary and buy right now? Like,
yeah.
In a second.
Yeah. In the mid-50s, Gottlieb has White run 2 safe houses in New York City where White tests LSD on drug addicts and other expendable types that wouldn't be believed if they went to the cops. It wouldn't be missed if they wound up dead or fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about
I'm glad none of these are existing problems.
Right.
It seems like everything's cool now. We got this figured out, didn't we?
So White would pose as an artist or a seaman. Seaman.
Yeah.
A what?
This
Seaman.
all ended in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he would dose his victims at parties or at bars. At
But they
one
were
point,
happy about it. Did he tell them it was good for their skin? Okay, I'm done.
I don't think he had to. I think they did fucking go nuts. At one point, one of these victims gets away from him and goes to the Lenox Hill Hospital. She reports that he's drugged her against her will. But the CIA has previously made an arrangement with the NYPD, and they tell this lady she's wrong, so they send her home. It's like, oh, no, you're mistaken. You're mistaken, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
This program goes so well that Sidney decides to expand his research to the West Coast in 1955. So he sends White to San Francisco to set up more safe houses. But this time he wants to spice it up a little bit. And he wants to put sex in the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And in
All
step,
right.
Scarlett Johansson, Rosario.
Hold on,
Dawson,
it's getting there. It's getting there. It's getting there. I actually wrote that in here. So they hire sex workers to draw in men to be drugged in these safe houses / brothels, where they would be secretly observed. White was working undercover as a journalist at the time. He rented out an apartment, furnished it with posters of like dancers, scantily clad women in bondage, domination pictures. He probably went with this decorative. Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably
Wendy's
went
Kitchen
with
or
this
a body
because
shop.
this decorative motif because he was into S&M. So Rosario Dawson, Winona Ryder,
like
Scarlett
my
Johansson,
kitchen?
and Kate Mara star in Operation Midnight Climax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I want that
was
shirt
what this
immediately.
little project was called. So White puts in bugging equipment, a two-way mirror, and behind this two-way mirror is where his little office is, where he installs a portable toilet where he will sit down and watch these Johns come in while he's drinking pitchers of martinis.
Yeah.
And getting fucked up and probably
Leave me alone, I'm baiting.
just sitting there, just watching the dirty business go on. Yeah,
He didn't have to drop a coin. The glass, the thing just stayed up.
So this was all just
so
It's just like
yeah, it's fucked up.
idiocracy.
for, like,
Or he's
porn?
sitting on the toilet the whole time, so he just doesn't have to move.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably easy access, just like
Yeah.
I don't know,
I'll put that in there. Leave me alone, I'm baiting.
baiting that hook. Mm-hmm. Now, White would pay these sex workers partially and get out of jail free
Drugs?
cards. He basically would give him
Ooh, yeah.
his number, and then I think he also paid him like $100 for every John that they brought in, which for 50s money, man, that's pretty good.
You're banging it out, yeah.
Yeah. So if they got busted,
Best way to put that.
these women could just give him a call through his connections. He'd get him out of jail, and charges dropped.
Yeah.
How could you blame him? I mean, seriously.
Dude, I'd do it too.
Yeah.
I'll suck your dick for some rock. Right?
You in here for weed? I used
I
to
know what
suck
you're
dick
talking
for
about.
coke.
Crack. For crack, he said. You ever suck dick for crack?
All right. So Sidney Gutley visited this site on many.
Most people that watched America's Funniest Home Videos didn't know about that part, I don't think.
Oh, they didn't know anything about it. Any of his
About old Danny
comical
Tanner.
stuff. Yeah, his potty mouth, man.
He was funny.
It was funny.
1 second. Rest in peace, my man.
Are you finished?
Yes. Yeah.
Sidney
Okay.
visited on many occasions, always requesting girls, to which White would oblige him. He said he was cock crazy. That's what White said at one point. He's like, Sidney Gutley, that guy's cock crazy. I think he meant
Really?
he wanted to get laid. I think that's what, because he wanted girls.
I thought he meant he wanted.
Girls.
Yep. One of White's agents, who was only identified as Feldman, was interviewed after White died, and he tried to explain what was happening during that time. This is the funniest fucking thing
Okay.
out of the whole book, Poisoner in Chief, that I found. I can't imagine doing this in anything other than like some, I don't know, when I hear it, I hear this like East Coast, like, forget about it.
Yeah.
Kind of accent. This guy was from Brooklyn originally, I think.
Oh, well, yeah.
Several times Sidney Gutley came out. I met Gutley at the pad in White's office. Sidney was a nice guy. He was a fucking nut. They were all nuts. I says, you're a good Jewish boy from Brooklyn like me. What are you doing in these crazy cocksuckers? He had this black bag with him. He says, this is my bag of dirty tricks. He had all kinds of crap in that bag. We took a drive over to Muir Woods out by Stinson Ranch. Sidney said, stop the car. He pulls out a dot gun and he shoots this big eucalyptus tree with a dot. Then he tells me, come back in 2 days and check on that tree. So we go back in 2 days. The tree was completely dead. Not a leaf on it. Then I went back and I saw White, and he says to me, what do you think of Sidney? I said, I think he's a fucking nut. White says, well, he may be a nut, but this is the program. This is what we do.
Sounds exactly like
Ah.
that. Was very good.
Anyway, that's the funniest thing that's going to happen. Like I said, these are your fucking federal
Well
tax dollars at
done.
work.
Well done.
White discovers that over time, he discovers that if he waits to dose these men until after the sexual encounter portion of the program, that he had the women stay with him for like a few more hours after they got their nut off, they were more likely to open up and talk.
Yeah.
Honeypot.
Yeah. So, I mean, out of all the research they do, that's really about as far as it goes. I mean, that's as far as they get with this portion of the program. But fuck yeah, it was. Fuck yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now
Take you to the candy shop. I'll let
Gottlieb
children
is
go
so
on.
This was just a front
happy
of the
with
fucking door. This
the
was
results
a window
that are
shop.
happening with this with Midnight Climax that he
Peep show,
decides to
that's what I was
expand
looking
it.
for. This was a peep show.
And bravo, good show. Like it, love it, lovely.
Scroll, click, scroll,
Yep.
scroll.
He has White.
Yeah.
No,
It's like, I'm tired of that curtain dropping. I'm about ready to.
Yeah. Where am I?
Well, that's why they had
Fuck,
to do
Megan
this.
Moon's in
They
my
didn't
place.
have scroll.
All right, so eventually
click back then.
they expand the program. White has other agents help him randomly dose people throughout San Francisco in bars, restaurants, wherever they can get away with it. But they didn't stop that. No. There was a CIA source that stated, if we were scared enough to do it, of a drug, not to try it out ourselves, we would send it to San Francisco. Now, White, being the upstanding citizen that he was, he would always try it on himself first before he would dose other people with whatever the fuck they sent him.
Give me some of that.
But yeah, so they were just like, fuck around and find out. After a rough day,
Mhm.
White would sometimes, and when I say sometimes, I mean regularly, hold parties for his fellow narcotics officers at the safe house. Neighbors would complain about all these guys with gun straps hooting and hollering at all hours of the night while they chased around naked women through the house. Yeah.
It does.
Mr. White, drug
Wolf of
enforcement.
Wall Street shit going on over there.
Yeah. Now, White continued these experiments by setting up a second safe house in San Francisco, in another area that was a little classier. But most of the stuff that went on there it wasn't sexy. There's no sexy time going on there. That's where Sidney would send him things such as itching powder, stink bombs, especially hidden hypodermic devices that could inject drugs and poisons into wine bottles through the cork, and aerosol LSD bombs. Yeah. Apparently, they tried to set
This
off.
is so terrifying, man.
They tried to set off an LSD bomb at a party, but apparently it didn't work because it was too humid outside and the windows were open. So, yeah, this shit happened. This is not fucking make believe.
I think I know where those safe houses were located. Somewhere around Haight and Ashbury.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Not this particular one, but later. Yes, you are
This
correct. So one of these many victims of White's random LSD experiment was a federal agent named Wayne Ritchie. He was dosed at the Federal Building in San Francisco, where he proceeded to lose his shit, grab 2 guns, and he proceeded to try and rob a nearby bar. Now, luckily, someone hit him over the head before anyone got hurt, and he pleaded guilty in court. But the judge overseeing the case let him off because he had had a clean record. He had been through World War II, and he had no idea what the fuck he had done. He could not remember anything. And
Check the box. It worked.
it basically ruined his life, though. I mean, he was
We
severely
don't care
depressed.
about that. We just care that it worked.
Yeah. He didn't find out what happened for 22 years. He just thought he lost his mind, and like I said, his life went to shit. When he reads about Sidney Gottlieb and all these random dosings that took place in San Francisco, though, he realizes that he's been drugged, and he tries to sue the CIA, but they don't have any evidence, so he doesn't get anything, which is fucked up. So, moving right along. Now, while all this is going on, Sidney's also dabbling in deadly poisons. Hey, well, that's what he's really, really good with toxins and shit. That was his specialty. One of his babies,
Because why wouldn't you?
what he considered to be the perfect suicide drug, was derived from shellfish picotoxins.
Yeah.
He developed this pill to distribute to pilots flying spy planes over Russia in case they were, about to be captured. Now, one of these pilots, he notoriously chewed lemon drops while he flew, and he accidentally put one of these fucking pills in his mouth, but he fortunately did not bite down on it. So that's why he didn't die. But after that, Sidney develops this small coin that contains a small pin inside that is got so much toxin that all they have to do is just scrape themselves with it, and they will be dead. Within a minute, they're going to be dead. So they all start carrying this coin. It's like a silver dollar.
That fish toxin stuff, some of that stuff is outrageously quick working.
Yeah. No one ever used it until the Russians, because they shot the pilot that was carrying it down over Russia, and the Russians take it. They tested it on a dog. The dog proceeds to die within 2 minutes of being scraped with it. Then they held it up and said, "What the fuck's going on, America?" And they're like, "What?" Yeah.
Wait, I don't know what you mean. But it was tetanus. Must have been tetanus, right? Was it tetanus? Was it?
Rabies.
Already sick. It was easy. Why don't just give it back to us?
Oh shit. Sydney is
Come
also
on, guys. We can talk this out.
expanding.
Send over that one dude. There's nothing to worry about here. We'll just talk.
Forget about it.
Yeah. Mind your business, Tony. I'm walking.
Oh shit. Now Sydney's also expanding out through other various fronts, corporations, foundations to fund research through hospitals, and like we mentioned earlier, some of these prisons and universities. But hospitals like Mount Sinai, Massachusetts General Hospital, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley. We're talking LSD tests, mind control experiments, torture experiments.
It's some big names in there.
A lot of these researchers had no idea they were being fucking funded by the CIA.
And probably didn't care.
Well, the checks weren't bouncing. So
yeah, what I mean, yeah. Money's coming in.
Some of the things they were wanting researched were substances that would promote impulsive behavior to the point where the subject would become incoherent and discredited in public. Substances that increase perception. I believe they call that cocaine. Substances that will block or diminish the effects of alcohol. Substances that will
That's also cocaine.
Increase the effects of alcohol.
That's not cocaine.
Substances that would promote brainwashing. Substances that induce euphoria.
Mescaline.
Substances that would enhance hypnosis.
LSD or mescaline or
substances that
That's a great mini.
Alter personality to the point of increased dependency on another person.
That's it. That's almost all things you can get addicted to.
Yeah. Now they did. I'll throw out a couple here. They funded a study to feed mentally handicapped children cereal containing uranium at a Massachusetts school to see if it interfered with their iron intake.
I don't know why you always do episodes like this.
They also funded research in which children were given LSD for up to 14 days at a time. Yeah.
I went to art school with a guy that when he was a kid, like his parents were hippies and they were into that and they had it on the coffee table and he got into it as a baby. He got into their stash like he was like a toddler.
Yeah.
Like 3 years old and got into their stash and ate it. Dude was whipped out of his mind crazy, but a fucking genius. Like he done a thing on time travel that just destroyed the teacher. Like the teacher was just like, I just want to quit because dude, because he was going back and forth on this chalkboard saying no, but if you didn't know, because if you can't, and everybody was trying to argue with him and he destroyed everyone's faces. And I was just like, damn.
Crazy.
I'm glad my parents weren't hippies. Too big of hippies.
All right. So after Alan Dulles' son suffered from a head injury in the Korean War, he started talking to all these specialists in psychiatric clinics, and he met a doctor named Harold Wolff at Cornell University. They found they both shared this fascination with the theory of mind control. So Dulles quickly sends Wolff to Gottlieb, who sent him $140,000 to Cornell University to research changes in behavior due to stress brought about by actual loss of cerebral tissue. Yeah. Some lobotomization.
Do it.
Yeah. Anyway, after this study, Wolff continues to do research under a fake foundation he sets up for several more years. One of these experiments involved 100 refugees from China who were drugged with LSD to see if they could be reprogrammed to go back to China and commit terrorism. America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Let's see. Here's another one. God damn it, I don't have his name. Okay, so there was another study conducted on the East Coast at a university where there were several people that were interviewed to find out their belief system. And after that, for the next several years, they were broken down, and everything they had been had given as information. This person basically said, "No, you're wrong," and convinced him, and basically fucking brainwashed him. And
I want to say so many things right now. I'm just not.
I'll say one thing. about this. No drugs were given out in this experiment. This was just
doesn't have to be if it's constantly berated into your face. You can't turn a fucking channel.
One of the. That's correct. That is the study that the Unabomber was involved in. MK Ultra.
Turn the channel, motherfucker. Turn the channel.
Yeah.
Was that
okay?
Study that Kazinski.
What have we got left? Okay, we're on the home stretch, people. We're on the home fucking stretch. You ready? I got a couple more here. All right. Lewis Jolyon West was another researcher for the CIA. He was better known as Jolly West. He headed the head of psychiatric services at Lackland Air Force Base through the 50s and and taught at several universities throughout the United States.
Wait a second, Air Force Base.
We don't
have any experts on that though, so continue.
He was one of the psychiatrists that ended up talking to the captured U.S. pilots from Korea that had been brainwashed in episode 1 that we talked about.
Yeah.
The ones that said they'd dropped all these biological weapons. And he apparently, quote, deprogrammed them, unquote. He deprogrammed these pilots when they came back to the States.
Did he?
And he gets them back to, he gets them to take everything back that they had said after they'd been captured. So the CIA thinks he's fucking hot shit. So West starts working with Gottlieb around 1953. And he's got some ideas, Matt.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah. He thinks he knows how he can extract information from unwilling subjects through hypnosis and combinations of certain drugs, like Todd's got there. He also has ideas to plant false intel into subjects, induce mental disorders, and create couriers who could carry long, complex messages secretly locked in their minds and induce trance-like states and amnesia.
Obi-Wan, your only hope.
No. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So in 1956, Jolly informs Gottlieb that his experiments have come to fruition. He's found a way to replace true memories with false ones without subjects knowing through a combination of drugs and hypnotic suggestion. Now, most of these papers where we get all this information from were missing from the MK Ultra papers. They were found in his memoirs after he died. Otherwise, we wouldn't know anything.
Weird that they just didn't want it out there.
No, it's MK Ultra was destroyed. I mean, everything was burned. The only reason we know about this and about all these other programs is because all these doctors had documentation of it. Otherwise,
nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
I told you I lost my freaking papers. Okay. Now, an airman at Lackland Air Force Base was
homework.
There you go. An airman at Lackland Air Force Base was picked up in July 1954 after a 3-year-old girl was raped and murdered. Jimmy Schaefer was found near the body in a gravel pit, shirtless, covered in scratches, and in a trance-like state. He claimed no memory of committing the murder. After he was booked in jail, his wife came to see him. He claimed not to recognize her at all. After 2 weeks in jail, still maintained no memory of killing the girl or having her he did have a recollection of a blonde-haired man with tattoos, though. The base commander ordered him to be evaluated, and guess who evaluated him? Jolly West. West hypnotized him, gave him sodium pentothal, and took him back to the crime scene, asked him leading questions to walk him through the crime, and gets him to admit the murder.
They're doing a Brandon Dassey on him while he's fucking out of his mind.
Yeah. So
now you can go home and watch WrestleMania if you just tell us shit we want to hear.
Right. So after he comes down from these drugs, he takes his confession back, but they use it in court anyway, find him guilty, and he's executed for his murder. But it's worth noting
probably real quick. I bet it was prompt, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Like pretty quickly.
I wanted to put this in there that Schaefer suffered from extreme migraines, which prevented him from flying. So he had been recommended for an experimental program at Lackland that would have been where West was doing all his research for the CIA.
Wow.
And when Schaefer's lawyers found out this information, they went to the base to find records of his treatment. But the archivist informed them that all the records from patients from 1954 with the last name starting from SA to ST had been destroyed, and they didn't know why.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, it gets better.
It's just crazy.
It gets better.
I mean, it's
You
crazy
ready?
how it happens. I mean, we don't know why.
In 1962, Jolly decides he's going to shoot up this elephant named Cusco at the Oklahoma Zoo with a dose of LSD containing 300,000 micrograms.
Dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard.
That's 100,000 times stronger than a normal dose of LSD. So 5 minutes after he hits this elephant with the dart, it proceeds to roll over, shit itself, have a seizure, and die. Tax
You bet it didn't
dollars
land on him.
at work.
It would have been worth it if it would have landed on him, though. I mean, it shit on him, then fell on him.
Right.
Perfect.
Science is fun, isn't it?
No.
All right. If you want to get fucking nuts, like you want to get nuts. Here's like the crazier conspiracy side of all this bullshit. It's worth noting that after the JFK assassination in 1963 and Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald, they bring in a psychiatrist to examine Ruby. That shrink was also Jolly West. Before Ruby's supposed
Shocker.
to testify to the Warren Commission, West informs them that Jack Ruby has had a psychotic break and he never gives an in-depth reason for killing Oswald.
Because it couldn't have been that we wanted the war and somebody didn't want the war. And we.
But wait, man,
I'm glad we don't have anybody to ask that would have like any kind of information on it.
it gets better, man.
We'll just keep moving along.
Let's go to Haight Ashbury.
We've had a guest that's been stupidly quiet on this episode.
He can neither confirm nor deny.
I know what the answer would be to everything.
So in 1967, President Johnson orders Richard Helms, who was then head of the CIA. He took over for Allen Dulles. He orders him to launch domestic surveillance programs on the growing anti-war movement, which once again is it's illegal as hell for the CIA to do this. This operation is codenamed Chaos, which brings us to the Tom O'Neill section of the program. Okay. So Tom O'Neill wrote this book, Chaos, which is a wild read. I highly recommend you check it out. Todd.
Todd just answered his shoe phone. I'm sorry.
It was my Get Smart reference.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
It's that
perfect.
chaos. I was like, oh.
All right. Chaos deals a lot with the Manson family. I'm talking like Charles Manson, not Marilyn.
Right.
So the CIA, along with the FBI, their counterintelligence program, which is called COINTELPRO, they set up operations in San Francisco, not far from the Black Panther Party, which had their base set of in operations in Oakwood. So these two agencies infiltrate various sects of the left through the use of undercover agents and informants by the summer of 1969, and basically cause an all-out war between various groups of the revolution movement. The book I just mentioned, Chaos, goes through a lot of the painstaking details of all this. It leaves no real clear connect the dots type of connection, but it shows there is clear evidence that Charles Manson was a person of interest to the CIA. There was at least one person that was really close to him that was involved in the CIA.
Pretty sure he was a rat bastard too.
At the Tate House after the murders took place, but before they were reported to the police. The agent reportedly claimed that it was not supposed to happen that way. Something went wrong.
It was the wrong person there.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that Manson was arrested 4 to 6 times prior to the Tate murders and released every time. One of these arrests was for car theft, I believe. And
a lot.
He was a convicted felon from federal prison, so that should have sent him directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
But he's so small.
Yeah. Yes. And there you go.
He's so little.
He's a
I
little
probably
bit-
just felt bad for him. He's a tiny little fella.
I also want to state that
where you were
Manson is also
after
in
getting
Haight
behind an
Ashbury,
escape
Todd.
from stealing a second car.
At the same time, Jolly West is operating a lab set up to look like a hippie pad, giving out LSD.
Oh, just wait.
Crazy, huh, Todd?
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, he's not going to go ahead.
Okay, so by the beginning of the 60s, Gottlieb decides that MK Ultra's failed to produce any real mind control techniques. The program slows down, and he spends most of his remaining years in the CIA developing various methods of assassination.
So was it 67 was the summer of love, 69 was the end, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the 67 GTO is a beautiful car, 69 Dodge Charger, also a beautiful car. It's also the General Lee, which I was a big fan of when I was a kid.
It's good shit.
Just going to throw that in there. I told you I was going to.
Yeah.
Cars coming through.
Now, this next portion was going to be a whole nother episode, but I just kind of shortened it to one page.
Okay.
So they slow down MK Ultra by the beginning of the 60s, so that Sidney can work on ways to kill people. He comes up with various ways to kill.
Right?
He comes up with various ways to kill Castro, from poisoned toothpaste to scuba suits laced with anthrax to poisoned cigars. You name it, he probably made it.
In a mosh.
He also tries to poison Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. He develops micro cameras and James Bond type gadgets like the Acoustic Kitty, where they put a microphone inside of a fucking live cat to see if they can spy on people. I think they did.
Would they
this
shove it up a chapstick, or was it?
I think they did this with birds too. Yes. No, it was funny because they spent all this money putting this equipment in this cat, and then it proceeds to. They want it to go listen in on just two people having a conversation, and it proceeds to like walk up to them for like 3 seconds, and then it fucking walks off, and I think it gets hit by a bus. Yeah.
Damn it! All that equipment was.
So
Should have chose a dog.
Waste
Should have
of
chose a
good
dog.
pussy.
I was waiting for it. Waiting for it.
I've been waiting
Just like
2
every time.
weeks to drop that one.
I know. That's why I knew I had to
Put all the
go back
money
in
into
there.
it, and then it just leaves.
So in 64, MK Ultra is renamed MK Search. And while work continues on mind control, it's in other variations. In 68, a CIA team flies to Saigon where they implant electrodes into the brains of several Viet Congs. And after the procedure, these men are placed in a room filled with knives. And the researchers sit behind a glass wall that's like a mirrored and watch them for 3 days and push the button to see if they will
Kill each other.
Yeah. And after 3 days, nothing works, no success. So these 3 men were taken away by Green Berets and shot. Their bodies were burned.
Oh, I thought they were gassed.
No,
No.
bullets are cheaper.
Yeah, it's way cheaper. There's only 3 of them.
In 1972, Richard Helms is fired by Nixon for this little thing called Watergate. And as his
Little
last
thing.
directive as the head of the CIA, he has Gottlieb destroy all records of MK Ultra. All the things we have today are just what was overlooked, or from memoirs of people who were hired as contractors for the project outside of the CIA. A couple of years later, Gottlieb retires. In 1974, details of MK Ultra reached the public through an article in the New York Times. And soon after, the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission were formed to investigate the CIA and MK Ultra. Then there's a congressional investigation held. Gottlieb is summoned to testify in Washington. He does to do so, but only if they grant him immunity. Then he comes forward, states that he destroyed these MK Ultra files because the material was sensitive and capable of being misunderstood. So he's never prosecuted because he was given total immunity. And No one ever goes to jail for any of this shit.
Of course, no one ever does.
Sidney Gottlieb
Too
lived
big to fail.
until
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
long life. He did not die until 1999. Yeah. I think he was 80. Let's see here. The article that this New York Times sported the headline for his obituary. Let's see. Sidney Gottlieb, 80, dies, took LSD to the CIA, and contained the following in the first sentence. Presided over the Central Intelligence Agency's Cold War efforts to control the human mind and provided the agency poisons to kill Fidel Castro. How'd you like that to be like? That's what you're remembered for.
Yeah.
There are so many more things that we could cover and I didn't cover, but quite frankly, I'm fucking done. I'm fucking done. Ah,
Well done.
There's the
Now
Lindley
let's
I
open-
know.
Now let's open the door on more stuff.
it's your turn. My turn to talk shit for the next 3 weeks.
It's Lindy's turn, but I'm going to help. Hopefully, she'll let me
Well
help.
then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, chime in and help. I'm going to chime in and help. I'm going to do a crystal.
You're going to do crystal. What?
Oh, you better
Crystal
get
meth?
going.
What?
No, I'm going to do
That's
a
halfway
crystal.
All right.
Not meth, but,
I hope not.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
Perfect.
Matt, is there anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Perfect.
you know what?
I love
Like, rate, review if you want to. If you don't, then fine. I'm tired of talking about it. I would appreciate it if you did.
I'm
If you don't, you
proud
don't.
to be an American, where at least
Fuck
I
yeah.
know I'm free.
Where we all have LSD.
Yes.
Well, thank you
That's
guys
good.
for
I don't-
hanging out and putting up with the last 3 weeks of my bullshit.
Oh, dude, it's been
I'm
awesome.
so glad it's fucking over. I'm so glad it's over.
Oh, yeah. Also, tune in, guys, if you can, on Saturday nights at 7 Central Time PM for our live shows that we'll do. Because a lot of them are pretty funny. And some of them, if you don't catch them, you'll never catch them again.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big goal.
That's for sure. That's for sure. All right. Well, guys, have a great week. Thanks for hanging out. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, I'm Zach.
Yep.
Spar.
I forgot who I was. Where am I? Who? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lindy.
Later.
Later.
FGC!
It's evil! Don't touch it!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you.
Hello, Mr.